Hey, you guys, Jim Vinosky with Manufacturing Talks here. Welcome back to the show. Got another good one. And this one, this is near and dear to my heart because I'm talking to a guy who, like me, came up from the manufacturing floor, worked out there, struggled out there, suffered out there. And what he did is he went and founded a company to help solve some of the problems that he himself dealt with. And he saw all the, awesome people around him dealing with during his time there. So his name is Ryan Kuhlenbeck. He is the CEO of a place called Pico MES. And he's here to tell us all about what his company does, why he founded it, and why he thinks this is kind of the way of the future for helping our true experts on the manufacturing floor, the operators and engineers who are there day in, day out, making stuff for us. Stay tuned. We'll be with Ryan here in just a second.
Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Industry has a million cool stories, and Jim talks to the movers and shakers who are making them happen. Let's dive in.
PYS Media, your digital media relations agency. Public relations, website design, digital marketing. You get found by the customers and talent who need your solutions. You get media placements in top publications, the best job candidates coming to your website, a digital presence that gets you found by the right people. Call 616-298-8798 to get started today.
All right, guys, welcome back to Manufacturing Talks as always. And as always, thank you to our sponsor, DYS Media. Go look them up online. They'll do a great job for you in the PR world. Another great show here today. This one's a great one for those of you on the manufacturing floor because I got a guy here who's got solutions for you. So his name is Ryan Kuhlenbeck. He's CEO of a company called Pico MES, and he's here to tell us all about it. So let's bring him on. Ryan, hello.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Thanks for being here. How are you doing today?
Well, I've got a fresh cup of coffee, so we should be all right.
And that's critical. Absolutely. Well, I want to dive right in because I think we got a lot of great stuff to cover for our manufacturing folks out there. Now, as I said in that brief intro, you're addressing problems on the plant floor and you come from the plant floor. So I want to hear first about that background and what brought you to founding Pico MES.
Yeah, we'll get into how good of an idea it is to form your own company here in a minute. But my 30-second kind of background, I grew up in a small town in central Illinois. It was a manufacturing town. It's where the Firestone tires were built that went on the Explorers back in the day. So always just respected skilled trades, people that make things for a living. Put me into mechanical engineering for my trade. Went to a small school in Missouri, but landed at General Motors. And so spent 10 years at one of the biggest manufacturers on the planet, kind of learning all of the capabilities they had. Chased a girl to a different town, didn't work out, and ended up at Tesla for a couple of years over on this kind of tech side of the house now, where there's an opportunity to do something different and a kind of very, very different mentality, but also zero understanding of how to produce a car at that time. And then had a chance to actually start my own factory at a company called Alta Motors, where we were building motorcycles inside of that building from scratch. So always involved in the making of these products. And one of the things in the automotive industry is you learn real quick is you can design the coolest thing on the planet, but if you don't bring your supply base along with you, you're just not going to get anywhere. And, in 2019, we decided to break out and try to solve some of those solution gaps where big factories can bring DC torque tools to bear when they need to, and they can collect data and tie into machines. But when you go into the supply base, it's much harder to do that with the solutions that are out there. So it's really what we formed Pico to do. And kind of the mission that drives me is I someday I'm going to go run another shop floor again. And I'd like to have a really killer tool set to go do it with. And it wasn't going to happen if we didn't go create it. So
excellent. And so you kind of got into what prompted you guys to found this thing. Now, let's step back a second and talk about kind of the nuts and bolts here. An MES is manufacturing execution system, right?
Yeah, so we use that term loosely, but it's designed to be the thing that does the command and control layer. The classical definition is the command and control layer over the factory.
Yep.
So it's ingesting information from PLCs or from people or from your ERP that's asking you to order and build something, and it's distributing that to the shop floor and monitoring that things are built correctly. So that's the manufacturing execution system in a nutshell. But in order for it to work, it still needs something's got to be a sensor or solution, right? You got to feed it data. It could be people manually entering something. You also have to drive the work. Like what is supposed to happen? You know, sometimes that's a piece of paper that's a print or, you know, PowerPoint laminated.
Yep.
Other times it's digital and the MES has control over which version's being shown. But it's really this operating system that's driving the shop floor at its core.
And you know, I wrote about you guys for Forbes, and there were two things that really sparked my interest in covering this, and you know, continued in having you here on the show. And you mentioned one of them is that you came up from the factory floor, and you mentioned the other is that, you know, the big companies can pour money into problems and have all kinds of high price solutions, but the suppliers, the small and medium guys, can't do that. And so talk a little more about the specifics that you went after when you founded the company to help out those smaller actors out there.
So I think it's really interesting. I'm actually most excited about small manufacturers because it's the rare occurrence when you have, by the way, small manufacturers does not mean small company.
Right.
You know, a third of these might be standalone businesses, but a third are owned by private equity groups, and another third are pieces of bigger enterprises. You know, think of like Parker Hannifin and all the factories they bought through the years as they vertically integrated. So what's neat about them, though, is they tend to operate in a reasonably standalone environment. So the domain experts that know how to make that product are in those four walls. There's not some tech center 300 miles away or farther that is driving how this part's supposed to be made. And so if you can enable the experts in that factory to just fix the problems, to bring the technology in place that they know they need to solve, holy crap, you can have a small factory actually outperform the bigger ones. They're less complicated. They tend to be more specialized. So they should be more efficient on the other side. But the gap is in the technology and the way it's been developed. So I'm in the middle of a venture-funded business, right? It's got a whole lot of fun treats that come with that. But, you know, that tends to push towards enterprise because they understand it. So they can go get $1 million contract from General Motors, you know, or whatever it might be. You're never going to get that from a small and mid-sized factory. Their budgets don't work that way. It needs to be a proven solution. They're going to spend $1 million. It's going to be on 5-axis, you know, or something that they know how to make money off of. So for us, we needed to drop the cost and increase the access. That's what we were really focused on. So to drop the cost, the first thing you do is make your software not terrible to use, because then you don't need consultants and people that are there to configure it, or you don't have to hire a software engineer who writes all the code to do the routing throughout your factory, right? That's what big legacy systems drive. In our world, if you can drag boxes around on your cell phone, you can make your routings. If you can generate a work instruction in Word or PowerPoint, it feels exactly the same to do it inside of Pico. It's just faster, significantly quicker. It's trying to make it comfortable so that the people who know how to run the shop floor can take software and use it to make the shop floor better, instead of having to rearrange the shop floor to line up to somebody else's software. It seems like a weird thing, but what it does is it's reducing those barriers. And then on the cost side of the house, give them an affordable price to start with, which we can do when it's just software, so that they can take a step, try it, get a win, or hate it, throw it away. Either way, reduce the barrier of moving forward, and then let the experts go with it. You know, we have one customer that you got a chance to speak with in Indiana. They started with one problem. They needed to make sure a single set of bolts was torqued properly, and they needed a kind of a special tool to make that happen. So we integrated that tool. It was $800 a month is what they were paying us at that time. And then they were like, wait a minute, well, now we also have access to digital work instructions. Let's use these over here where we're building TV stands and floors for RVs and things like that, where we need to guide workers and they're building something different every day. And we can just gain more output by wasting less time figuring out how to build today's set of parts.
Yep.
And then they're like, hey, we can integrate more tools. Wait a minute, we can print labels, we can serialize things, we can track how we did this, we can understand our output, we can see which operators are struggling, which ones aren't. Like, they're doing all of that.
Mm-hmm.
We're just giving them a better tool set. And so I think that's the key to manufacturing in a high level is we need to improve the tool set that the supply base can bring to bear. Otherwise, the OEMs are going to stop their productivity gains because they're just going to get shut down by their suppliers all the time.
Yeah.
So,
You said something else I love, and I think it's very typical of someone who truly worked on the factory floor, and that is you referred to people out there doing the job as the experts. And you couldn't be more right. And yet that's something I think a lot of other more expensive and more involved solutions miss, is that the real knowledge is in those heads out there. And the opportunity is how do you effectively free that up to do its best work?
Yeah, especially in the automotive and aerospace industries where the business cases are pretty tight in the supply base. Like you're going to, they're going to drive down the cost as much as they can to keep their business cases better.
Right.
You're reliant on finding a ton of 1% improvements. If you think there's a 30% gain out there, it's either going to be an automation solution that you probably should have automated already, or you're dreaming, right? That's not the way most factories work, because there's smart people sitting there. If there was 30% to be had, they would have already gone and gotten it.
Absolutely. Yep.
But what ends up happening is you miss all the 1%ers that are 3% or 4%, or whatever the small losses are, where why did Jane outproduce Jim yesterday? How often does that machine actually fail and have an issue that we should have changed our maintenance structure around? Or, could we assemble this part with less rework because we didn't forget to install a bolt? Or we missed something in a complicated assembly. All those little things add up to, the overall OEE for those that speak it, or the efficiency of the factory. Today, they're in the 40 to 60% range, and they need to be in the 85, 90% range to be competitive. There's a 30% delta, and it's, find 1% 30 times is our motto. And I come back to those experts on the shop floor because, whether it's the operators, the supervisors, or the manufacturing engineers, they're the ones that know. They don't think. They know exactly where those 1% losses are. They just either can't justify it because it's been too expensive in the past to go fix them, or it's this whack-a-mole problem where they're never really able to clean kill a given issue. And so, that's the world I lived in. I mean, if I got 30 minutes to do my job and actually improve something in a given day, that was a good day.
Oh, heck yeah.
Most of my time was somebody made a mistake, a supplier sent a bad part in, somebody didn't show up. It's dealing with mistakes that are coming your way, not the other way around. So we're all about allowing people to be proactive and take 15 minutes, solve a problem, have a little bit better day tomorrow.
Well, and you mentioned something that I've been hitting pretty regularly around the whole, Industry 4.0 and AI discussion, and that is people talk so much about that factory floor automation, and that absolutely can be, as you referred to, a major improvement if you haven't gone after it. But a lot of people, that's not where the biggest bang for the buck is. And so, a lot of people, I think, get diverted off where their real opportunities are. And that's a piece of what you bring to the table, I think, that highlights, it may not be the latest and greatest machine. It could just be making your people's job easier, and it's going to deliver huge, huge benefits.
Especially when machine lead times are 6 months to 12 months or 18 months, and you can't hire more people because it's difficult to train somebody coming out of Taco Bell and get them into the shop floor when your training path is follow Bob around for 3 weeks and memorize what Bob does. Instead, if you look across the resources you have today, again, if I can go find 10% from everywhere, I can move this thing along in a significant path. One of the things that I find really funny is every ROI calculator we've ever done for a potential new, customer coming onto the platform is about half of what they actually find. Wow. Because it's hard to see it until you have that that digital backbone. But yeah, that's for the factories that do recognize, there's more to be had in the resources they currently have. What that ends up doing is you go find those gains over the first 6 months. It's freed up the brain power that could actually execute the automation side of the house as well. So there are certain, if that allows you to see certain areas where you could automate a process or two, awesome. But you need engineering brain power to actually do something like that. You don't want to trade off, 3 hourly people for 2 engineers that are required to babysit a robotic cell.
Right. Yeah.
You need to be able to actually seamlessly integrate it and gain that value back. So
to that end, and you had mentioned the different functions on the floor a couple times now, the folks in Indiana made a really big deal about how your system has helped close the communication gap between the operators on the floor and those manufacturing engineers. And that hit home with me. I mean, I'm an old manufacturing floor engineer myself, and I remember having those struggles of, not really connecting with what people were trying to tell me and the problems they were dealing with. So talk a little bit about how your system can help facilitate that.
Yeah, I mean, people miss on just having a common communication structure. If it's a memorized process or even one where maybe you're working from a print, there's interpretation inside of that. So if instead you have even a reasonably detailed series of step-by-steps, it's a common language to talk about. Step 4 is where I'm having this issue, or, hey, I think the routing of this wire harness we do over on step 7 of process B, that's actually hurting my wrist and I'm having a hard time with it. It gives the ability to communicate, first of all. And then our system, is digital. So it has, you push a button, you can submit a note that says, hey, engineer, like that picture's out of date, or I could do it faster if I did it this way. If they're on a tablet, they could snap an image from it. What you're doing there is you're just giving an easy way for the voice of the operator to be heard so that they're not just this. Yeah. Our number one rule is, don't be Big Brother and don't treat them like a robot. Like, just don't be an a-hole is honestly what it comes down to. Because if you ever done that job, I ran a CNC machine for a shift at one of our customers, just validate a thing we were doing. And it's, I need to do the work. I don't want to punch crap into the screen all day long. So our goal is to get out of your way. But when it is time to say, hey, like this part went wrong, I want to be able to do that quickly and easily and know that it got to the right people on the other side. And that's what our software is doing, is connecting the systems. So we use whatever communication they use internally. If it's email, Microsoft Teams, Slack, text, that's how we alert, right? That's how these notes flow. Don't create some other system you got to log into and learn something new.
Right.
Use the systems that already exist. And then for the operators, you're giving them an environment that has all the information they should possibly need to build the part right there, but yet not requiring them to interact with it unless something goes wrong. That's the goal of seamless integration. So I scan a barcode. If it's the right thing on the other end of it, auto advances forward. You don't write it down. You don't have to get a clipboard out. You don't have to say, yep, that's the answer. And then in our world, if you're an experienced operator, for documentation steps, engineers often need to put more information there than the operators need, especially in aerospace. We don't make them go, I did that, I did that, I did that, I did that, right? That doesn't do anybody any good. So we skip those steps, still available to them, and it goes to the quality check, or it goes to the torque action, or the label print, or the laser engrave, or whatever the gatekeeping steps are. So once you've done that, now this system is helpful to the operator instead of being more work. And when it's helpful, now they'll communicate. There's an incentive there. And then they get data back. And if you just make your plant floor people more efficient, you don't have the attrition problems. They want to stay. They're happy with it. They feel like there's a career path because they're learning technology and they're understanding more. They can show, hey, I had a really good day today versus others. So there's a little bit of that pump up that occurs when they can see their output, and they're aligned to the business. I mean, it's all just done by, communicate with how you'd like to be communicated.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah. And I love that mention of not making their jobs more difficult, which is what so many efforts to improve do. It's like, they just have infinite capacity for doing more work. Well, no, if you get out there with them, they're all plenty busy and they don't need extra work. They need help.
Yeah, most technology is focused on a business value, which is the right way, by the way. You need to start from business value. But when you're not thinking about it from the people's perspective of getting the work done, then it might be biased towards what the engineers want. Well, I needed these data for this corner cases, and now all of a sudden the operator is burdened with going and getting all of that instead of inferring it from tools or inferring it from other alarms and actions that are occurring like we do.
Yep.
But it's just, again, if I come back to shop floor, anything that can possibly go wrong you got to think things through. And that's what manufacturing engineers do more than anything else, is they have a really great way of understanding how things move through the factory. Yep. Well, we do the same thing with how the results move. And we are just trying to eliminate any piece of work that's not necessary, so the results move through faster. And that allows it to be easier to use and cheaper. Right? That's the whole goal here, and that makes it more accessible.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that I love is it facilitates that opportunity to make those improvements so that a problem that happens today isn't happening tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And that to me is what, makes your operators love you, is having something that's dogged them for weeks and months and years go away for good, right?
It's like the Lay's potato chip model. You do that once and it's just addictive, right? You just want more and more of it. And they're small gains. Yeah. So the key to it is small gains have to be achieved with small amounts of work for small cost, right? Like that's how this whole thing functions. And it's my favorite part is also when you have somebody who's used I call them legacy systems, but just think of all the ones that everybody hates. They're like, oh, this is how it's supposed to work. It's like, listen, I didn't wake up one day going, you know what I want to do? I want to dedicate 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and barely see my family so I can start a venture firm that is highly unlikely to actually make any money for me personally. Right? We went out and are like, I want to solve these problems, and the only way we can do it is to build this tech, take these learnings that we happen to have. There's a really unique story on how we got there, but put them out into the world and see if they stick. We're not a tech company trying to sell artificial intelligence to somebody saying it's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread, or a legacy company that requires every dollar that you spend on software has $1.50 worth of consulting fees and setup fees and implementation fees that come with it. We're eliminating repeating work and putting solutions in people's hands so that they can choose whether or not to implement.
Wonderful.
Anyway.
You mentioned AI, so I'm going to go there because obviously, I mean, it is just all the rage, all the buzz these days. I'm actually planning on doing an article here shortly, just going into what the heck is it and why does it matter to you? But you guys make use of it. So specifically, what is it that AI brings to the table that you wouldn't otherwise have for your system?
Yeah. So, we can get into the tech of how it works, but at a high level, artificial intelligence is just fancy algorithms looking for answers that you wouldn't gain through an intuitive view of the data. That's the way I view it anyway. Is it's a tool that allows insights to be generated more easily. So in our world, often it has no bearing. Like our factories are trying to implement, I just want to scan this part so I know exactly when it was built and how much labor content went into it. Or I need this data to give to my customer because they have audit rights to it. They'll start there. So that's a very obvious solution. Or I have a labor issue and I need to get more out of my people. But then it turns into the next iteration, which is, wait a minute, I want to access to these tools. I want to put in DC nut runners where we're using pneumatic tools or clutch tools. Or I want to put in a laser engraver on these parts, or tie into a machining center. Well, now you have increasing amounts of data coming your way. Right. So there's only so much you can understand without sitting there and staring at screens all day long. And we can only flush out so many using statistics and the models behind it. This is where artificial intelligence comes in, or machine learning is really what it is, where our data set's structured as inputs versus outputs. So if I know the difference between there, I can iterate loops in software that says what combinations of inputs drive problems or more output, and then flush that out using algorithms like that. So if you're an enterprise factory who already has data coming from the machines, right? You've been on this digital journey for 5, 10, 20 years. That's your problem. You're ingested with data and you need an algorithm that can sort through it across 30 factories, bigger data sets, things like that. That's why artificial intelligence is the rage in a lot of circles, is because that's what enterprise needs to try to find the next level of efficiency. In the supply chain side of the house, I think we have a couple of steps to go before that becomes the big technology there. But hold on to your hats. Like, this is where AI actually starts to become interesting. Forget about just running it on General Motors data. what happens when you can see the entire supply chain's data?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's not this like call and 48 hours later, hey, can you send me the CMM results from part XYZ through, ABC?
Yeah.
If it's available there and you can run the algorithms on it in advance, you could sort parts. Say, hey, I know this is slightly out of spec, but we can actually use it if we match it to these other slightly end of tolerance parts. And now our rotor lines, scrap rate drops by a third.
Yeah.
Big deal in certain industries for people that make motors. There's lots of that. Absolutely. Circularity of scrap, logistics movements, improvements, bullwhip effect on inventory things. So 2030, I think it's going to get really interesting, but I think you need to connect I think there needs to be a bigger digital foundation before it exits what one company gained by it, and it starts to really impact the industry as a whole.
Interesting.
So anyway, I went on a long curve there, Jim.
No,
sorry.
I think it's valuable. I can't imagine I'm the only one kind of scratching my head on, I hear this term all the time. What the heck does it mean, and what is it doing for us? Actually reading a really good book on that right now. So it's a personal interest. But you make a great point, is we've got more and more and more data, right? But data is only powerful if you can make it actionable. Right. And to me, that's what AI and ML bring to the table.
That's right. Data is useless in itself. Insights are effective. Yeah. And so ML algorithms are just able to generate insights in a new way that we may not be able to do intuitively. Mm-hmm. There's still no substitute for the human brain and the expert on the floor. I still go back to them first. Yeah. But there is always a limit for what any one person is capable of doing. And if we can bring tools in that amplify that, our force multiplier, that's where I see these tools really helping.
Yep. Yeah, I always say it's all looking at things that have already happened. There's no creativity to AI and ML.
Well, and remember, you feed it garbage data, you get garbage data out of it, right? As we've seen in a lot of the online tools and how it writes, speech we may not like and things like that coming out of it. So
as a writer, trust me, ChatGPT it's marvelous. Don't get me wrong, but it's easy to spot when things are not quite right and did not come from a human brain.
Don't build your house on a foundation of sand.
Exactly.
Right? Like that's the.
But there's no replacing the creativity of your experts on the floor. So freeing them up to use that is the key.
Amplify it, right?
Yeah, I mean, great point.
A torque tool amplifies the creativity of the person on the floor because they don't have to worry about. It takes the brain power of did I shoot every bolt, and it takes that brain power and frees it up to maybe I could have done this a little bit better. Yeah, I love the analogy of a race car driver. Like pick your driver of choice. 20% of their brain is driving the car because they've been doing it for so long. They know exactly how to set it up, and 80% of it is how am I going to pass this person? What's my perfect braking point? Where are my tires at? Like our operators today that are experienced, been there for 20 years, they get to that point, but there's still a chunk of their brain that has got to stay active and like, did I do everything I was supposed to do? And carries a little anxiety with it. Mm-hmm. If you can give them more and more tools that just reduce that, you actually get this creative flow that comes out of them. Sure. Either a happier environment, and that just is the way they manifest that extra brain power, or more solutions that could improve the process. But I guarantee you, it never makes it worse on that side
right.
of the house.
Absolutely right. Yep. Good. Well, so what are the next big opportunities for Pico MES?
Yep. For us, I mean, the big thing that we're heading down this path of is making our product even cheaper. We will always drive it to be easier to use, cheaper, and more capable. That's the goal for me, is so that it can be adopted faster. But the second piece of the puzzle that we're heading down is we're seeing this cliff where in the automotive and aerospace industries, especially in some of the heavy equipment, as the supply chains have a digital backbone, there's a significant incentive to share that data across the tiers. You don't just share who your supplier is, and you're not sure how they're going to share business case related stuff. Right. But if you can see, for instance, when did the parts you shipped out get consumed at the person you shipped them to, it tells you with more confidence when you need to reorder the raw material coming in on your side instead of some generic forecast that's 6 months old. So you can eliminate inventory carrying counts. Like there's a really interesting thing here, and actually I think it's the OEM's problem. this is who should be. And this may be a little more controversial, but yeah, how many major companies do you see saying, we did all this digital stuff and we gained 25%? Cool, you should follow in our footsteps. Well, why are you paying for a go, no go gauge fixture at a machine shop that doesn't provide you squat and costs you 30 to 60 grand to go get one made up? Why don't you put 25K into that factory as part of that NRE package to say, I want you to have a digital backbone for my stations so that you can implement these types of tools. And more importantly, we can share data in the future as we agree to. So we're heading down that path right now. And then just making the product easier. And I mean, we've got over 150 families of connected tools on the platform right now, and we're adding every 2 weeks. We release more. Oh, wow. So it's just access to, and every tool we integrate is because somebody asked us to do so for a specific problem that created a solution for them on the floor. So transferring that knowledge,
using that tool is going to be more productive.
Yeah, that tool we implemented at the RV manufacturer in Indiana you chatted with immediately got picked up by a semi-truck factory in Ohio that had the exact same problem on drive shaft installs, and it installed in less than 1 day, out of the box, in use, because it was done. There's no repeated work. And that's just awesome for me to sit back. It's industrial tourism is what we call it, where you can just see solutions across these factories. So awesome. That's where we're heading.
Good deal. Anything we haven't touched on that you want to get out there?
Just, remember manufacturing, 98% of factories have 500 people or less inside of them. When you think about manufacturing, think about the supply chain. It is incredibly important for the communities that they're within and our country as a whole. Let's get it done. That's how we win. So
well put. Ryan Kuhlenbeck, thank you for being with us here on Manufacturing Talks.
Jim, thanks so much for having me. Hope there was some usefulness coming out of today.
Oh, heck yes. It was a good one. To me, this is one of the best innovation stories that we've covered through this whole show. And of course, thanks to everyone who tuned in, and hopefully you took it away as well, that there are these amazing things like what Ryan has going on out here in manufacturing and making things better day by day. I can't promise every story is going to be as cool from an innovation perspective as what Ryan brought today, but we're here every week, and I guarantee you all of them will have some level of innovation. So thanks again. Tune in every week. We will be here. So long.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Watch for new episodes dropping every Tuesday. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.